With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Jim on with me. He reached out and he said, I have quite a little number of things that have happened. And even before we officially started recording, he used a term that I use quite a bit because I've had these kinds of experiences, and they are called one-offs, right, Jim? So that's what we are going to be talking about, is a number of different one-offs, which in a lot of cases, just the fact that they are one-offs can sometimes be more interesting than if it's this ongoing situation of repeating whatever the weirdness is, right? So anyway, Jim, welcome on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm glad to be here. I've listened from the beginning. So back when it was Sam and everybody. So
yeah.
Now I'm all glad to, because I'm like, I got to call in and tell her my stories, but I'm glad we finally connected.
Absolutely. Yeah, I truly appreciate it. And thanks for listening as far back as it's been 10 years now. So that's pretty crazy when the audio was a whole lot different, and I probably talked a little bit too much. So I do that less now. But thanks, Jim. So
you're welcome.
You did mention that most of these did occur in California. So however much, I always say, you hear me say it time and again, however much information you want to share to set things up and kick things off, but I have your list in front of me, and we will move through this.
All right. Well, so the first one I think I have on the list is the glowing eyes I saw. Now, this is kind of a weird one because now this actually happened in New Jersey when I was about probably 8.5 years old, living in a house with my parents, sharing a room with my brother wasn't even born yet. So it was just me in this room, and I'm asleep. And then I hear this knock at the window. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And then, so I got up and I just kind of looked out the window, and there are these two red glowing eyes that look to be about the size of, well, from a kid's perspective, golf balls, just in the bottom left-hand corner of the window. I freaked and ran to my parents. So that's how I know that I wasn't sleeping. So I jump out of my bed and I go run to my parents, and my dad's like, what the heck? And he comes into the room, and of course, there's nothing at the window now. So he just tells me, go ahead, go get back in bed. And I'm like, I can't. There's something at the window. And so from what I can remember, I just ended up having to endure sleeping in the bed with whatever knocked at the window. Now, I guess it could have been something in a dream, but I remember it woke me up. I got up out of bed, because if you're looking at the window, it was more towards the corner of the room, and my bed would have been to the left of the window. So when I got up and I looked, and I'm like, what the? And that's when I ran to get my dad. So the picture I sent you of the house with the circle, that's the window. But that picture was taken like from Google Earth. So back when I was there in the early 70s, none of those trees would have been there. So it's not like there was a squirrel in the window from the tree or a pot, whatever. There were no trees around the window. So,
see, that was kinda... unfortunately, this, where my brain was going, I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's not a Salem's Lot situation. I'm sure this was a first story window, but that is not the case. So I pulled the picture up. I'm like, oh, inside, I'm like, oh, that is a second story window. Creepy.
Yeah. And you can even see the trees that are there are still not that mature. But when we were living there, like I said, in the early 70s, there was no tree there.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was kind of a weird one. And nothing else happened really in that house, which I kind of, looking back on it, nothing else really happened in that house that I can think of, because we moved out of that house probably a year and a half later. So, but yeah, no, my parents never believed me. So I never really quite talked to them about it after that.
Do you remember having like this strong pull to look outside, or that you were being watched? Like, why'd you look out out the window?
Well, so I'm trying to think back to when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I was sleeping and I heard what sounded like knocking on the window.
Oh, so that was straight on. The knocking was straight up on the window. You could tell
on the window.
Was, okay.
Yes. That's why I went to the window.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long, the knocking had been going on. I just remember, waking up and like hearing the knocking, and then, getting out of bed and walking around to the end of my bed. And that's right where the window was. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I can't recall if they were moving, in any type of way. I just remember in the split second before I ran, it was like, oh, okay, 2 red eyes that shouldn't be there. I'm out. But I do remember them being bigger than just like a person's eyes or a dog's eyes. They were, I'd say, at least the size of 2 golf balls. And I can't even tell how far apart they were now because it's been so long. But yeah, so that was pretty trippy.
And just to add to this, I'm again looking at the picture. This is not a situation where there was some kind of an overhang or a porch for someone to climb up. It was not that kind of a situation where there was something for someone to stand on or something to stand on.
Yeah, that's why I was talking about the trees and stuff. Is like there was nothing there. It was just a corner of the house. There was no trellis work, no nothing, and all that. So, and we had a really protective German Shepherd that kind of slept, didn't really have any place to sleep. He just kind of wandered and slept wherever he wanted to. And he never made any sounds, so he didn't notice anything. He wasn't in my room, but, he was a pretty good, guard dog. So he didn't hear anything either. So.
Now, did you have blinds or curtains up that you would have to pull aside or open?
I had very sheer curtains. So and I did not go to the window, but they were sheer enough to where I could see them see what was happening. Because I'm trying to think if they were red or like a really dark orange. I'd probably have to say more of like a reddish color, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, so it was seen through these sheer curtains.
Now, did that scare you enough to where you thought, gosh, I want to come up with even though you told your parents, they didn't believe you, unfortunately, did that scare you enough to where you're going, oh, maybe I should come up with a reason why I want to switch rooms? Or did that come up this is a while ago, I understand. Yeah. Do you recall this sticking with you to where you're thinking the next night, like, oh my God, I hope I don't hear any knocking. Am I going to hear the knocking again and see these eyes, for lack of a better term?
No, from what I remember, so I have 3 sisters and and a younger brother, but he wasn't born yet. So there was basically 2-story with 4 bedrooms up there. Parents, mine, and then older sister had her own room, and then my 2 younger sisters had their own room. And so nobody would let me sleep in their room, from what I remember from the next night, because I'm very foggy on this at this point. But I do remember trying not to sleep in there, and then just being told, hey, just stop it and go to bed. That's kind of how my dad was. He's old school Italian, or was. He has since passed in 2019. But yeah, he was like, no, just go to bed. And you listen to your father back then.
You're like, Dad, but I love the couch. It's the most comfortable thing I've ever sat on or slept on. Exactly. He's like, since when?
Except I don't know, there were more windows downstairs.
Yeah, it looks like one of
So
those. I love those kinds of houses that it just looks
yeah,
like there is just a ton of windows all over that house, which good for you, right? You're like, yay,
yeah. So,
after
but
that
yeah, so that,
experience.
yeah, so that's pretty much all that happened there.
Now, I do like, let me just say something, Jim, before you go to sleep paralysis, because you put sleep paralysis down on the bullet point, but then you put a question mark, which I like that. I appreciate that because you're not saying for sure. And there's actually two more that have a question mark because you're
Yeah,
right out stating, I'm going to share this, but I'm not saying that's what this is. It's just, for lack of a better term, here's what we're going to be talking about next. So thank you for that. I think that's a good way to do that. So
yeah.
the next one is
It's
sleep paralysis, question mark.
yeah. So that one. So we have moved to California at this point, and we're in Santa Cruz, California. I'm not sure if everybody knows where that is. It's about an hour and a half south of San Francisco, beach town. And I was probably about 17 at this time. And from what I remember, it was a Saturday morning because it was kind of light in my room. And what was weird was I was kind of like laying there, and then I kind of I felt myself roll over onto my back. I'm like, what? And then my arms go out to my side, pointing out like a cross, kind of. And then it's this weird. It gets weird. It felt like I came off the bed a little bit, and then I was like, and I'm trying to stop, and I really can't do anything. And then the next thing I remember, I'm just like waking up from bed again. I'm back in my bed. It's still the same time of day, so there's no, like, from what I can recall, no time lost. And so I don't know if it was just a very vivid dream, but it's like I remember feeling myself. I think that's what kind of woke me up was I went onto my back and then my arms went out, and then I'm awake and I can feel myself rising. I don't think I went, from what I could tell, very high, but I felt myself come off the bed and not being able to do anything or stop anything. And I don't recall like trying to scream or anything. It's just like stunned, like, what's going on here? And I'm just like, and then I'd probably say, from what it felt like it was only about 30 seconds, maybe, because during that time, 30 seconds is a lifetime, because you're not sure what's going on. And then I just remember waking up again in bed and being kind of, still a little scared. And I never told anybody about that. I didn't tell my parents about that one. They didn't believe the red eyes. They weren't going to believe I was floating out of my bed. So,
Yeah, I
but
think at that
yeah,
point you were probably to where, well, kind of almost whatever happens, I won't be sharing it because you already got shut
yeah,
down.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, so my father and we were very much into the in search ofs, and anything big. My dad was a big alien guy too. He watched all those ancient alien shows. He watched anything alien. I remember when he took us to go see Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the drive-in. So he was into that stuff. So I think he would have been receptive to it. But that this was also probably 10 years later from when we moved out there. But I was still just also too. That's why I put the question mark. I can't say this wasn't a dream, but it was just very weird because I don't usually have vivid dreams. Maybe once in a blue moon you'll wake up and like, oh, damn, that was a dream. Okay. When it seems so real. But yeah, that one was just eerie because, like I said, we had watched these shows. And of course, you're thinking alien abduction. That's usually how it starts. You can't move in bed, you raise and then be taken out of the room. But yeah, as far as I know, it's only happened that once. I don't recall having any missing time or anything like that. And so, but yeah, it was definitely weird.
Do you recall talking with your siblings about, especially the knocking on the window and then the red eyes outside, or them having any kind of odd activity like that?
You know, for some reason, no. Especially with when I was with the eyes in the window, the way my dad just said it didn't happen, just go back to bed. And so I don't know. I mean, I thought about it later on in life because I remember my dad used to like to scare us. So I don't think because he was in his room. So because I remember I thought about and I asked him later on in life, I go, hey, did you ever do these? No, it wasn't me. You got me from my bedroom, and there's no way he could have done anything from his bedroom. Because when we were little, for some reason, my older sister and I and my next sister, we wanted to sleep out in the car for whatever reason. And he came out and scared us. So that's why I thought, well, maybe he did, but no, he swears he didn't.
Yeah, I imagine, especially if you asked him years later, at that point, he probably would have said, oh, yeah, I got the neighbor to stick a couple whatevers on a stick. And,
Yeah.
you would imagine at that point, he probably would come clean, but he didn't. So,
Yeah. Well, I think he would have come clean like even sooner because when he scared us, it was the same house. So we were still young. I mean, we're all sleeping like we're camping out there. And he had taken my mother's, those old styrofoam wigs,
yeah.
holders. He tied that onto his head and put a robe around him.
Oh, God.
Came out, shook the car, and then slowly stood up. So this white head came up through the window.
That's messed up.
Oh, my God.
That is messed up. I like your dad.
Oh, my God. I mean, we laugh about it now, but we almost died out there.
He had to get the upholstery cleaned in the car.
Yeah. Fumbling over each other. These three kids scrambling because it was like it wasn't it was a small Datsun station wagon.
Oh, geez.
So it's not like we're scrambling to get out of each other. Oh, it's funny. I mean, we can laugh at it now, but yeah, we used to talk about it all the time. It was funny.
That was a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. So I mean, he was, into the stuff that I was into, like the spooky stuff and all the ghost shows, but I don't remember him ever saying anything ever happened to him. Because that happened, and it only happened once from my memory. And then I think I was 17, so we probably moved out of that house. And that's the only thing I can remember ever happening in that house.
Jim, in regards to the fact that he was kind of into this stuff and you guys would watch in search of, do you find it slightly strange that he didn't ask more questions? Or, I mean, did he even come into your room to look out the window to see if anyone or anything was out there?
Oh, he did. That's why I didn't think he did it, because he was kind of...
He came all the way in. Okay.
He came all the way in, and he opened the curtains. Because, I mean, you had your 7-year-old, 8-year-old son coming in saying, there's somebody at my window knocking on my window.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asleep. So, yeah, he came in and looked. But, so that was, like I said, probably early 70s. Because I'm 60 now, so I was 70. I was 7 or 8. I know we moved out of that house shortly after that, but from what I recall, it wasn't until I was probably about 13, 14 that we kind of started watching this In Search of stuff. And so I don't know if it was something that he got into later on in life or how he even got into that. Because that's unfortunately, since he's passed, now that I'm more into it and I know what questions to ask, like, hey, what got you into this or this? I was never able to do that with him.
Well, on the other side, I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it's not like he wouldn't have responded. He would have.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't think to ask about that stuff back then.
Right. Well, I think the other side to
So,
my statement or question would be most parents do not want to. It's okay to scare kids to a certain point, but then you have to stop and not create some kind of a PTSD about a certain situation. So maybe for him, that was that situation where he didn't want to poke and prod you or go, oh, maybe it was aliens, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, because
yeah.
maybe he was starting to get into that stuff and had questions, but didn't want that to live in your head any longer than maybe it was already going to because you saw it.
Yeah, quite possibly. Like I said, we just never really talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we did not at all. It's like it didn't happen. And so it's just something that pops into my head every now and then, especially since, I like this stuff. So you hear other people's stories and, then you start thinking about it again. And so, but yeah, it was definitely different.
All right. So next up is ghost sighting.
Okay. So let's see. So we're still in Santa Cruz or at that house I was talking about. And oh no, wait, we had moved out. So it was probably I was 21, 22 at the time. But all through high school, I always knew a friend that worked at the Aptos Twin Movie Theater. Just this two little theater, and always had a friend that worked there. So we were always going there. And everybody that worked there said it was haunted. There was a ghost. And they named the ghost Henry, I believe. And I was into ghosts, but I'm like, okay, yeah. But like one of my best friends worked there. And he says, yeah, we hear noises all the time and this and that. And it's like, I believe them, but it's like, I'm into this stuff and I've never heard it whenever I had been there. That's where we went to the movies all the time and we'd hang out and stuff. And then this one time, another good friend of mine was the assistant manager. So we would go after the movies were done and they were closing up, all the friends would come over, bring beers and food, and they'd play the movie for us. And we'd just sit there and get drunk and watch the movie. Well, this is before we even started drinking, so I wasn't even had any alcohol in me. My buddy says, hey, all right, I'm going to go put the film on. And I said, hey, I've never seen it done. Can I come up with you? He's all, yeah. Okay. So I'm 6'3", about 250 pounds. My buddy's 6'3" and about 300 pounds. So we're two big guys, right? We're going to go upstairs. And when you come into the door, it's where the two projectors are, one on either side of the room. And it's just a big open room. There's nothing for people to hide behind. So we go up and I'm watching him feed it through and he's getting it going. And you know how in the old projectors, I think they still do this, they shoot through that little glass window down onto the screen. So he was getting through there and I just kind of look up and I'm looking through this glass window and over my left shoulder is a man standing behind me. I can see his face, dark hair. I can see a mustache. And this was over my left shoulder. So when I looked to the left, there's nobody there. It's just he and I up there. And I said, oh God, Henry's here. I'm out of here. And my buddy literally says, dude, if you leave me here, I'm going to effing kill you. So, but the point about to the left is when I look to the left, that's where the door is. So nobody could have been behind me and then skipped out somewhere. They couldn't have hit anywhere because there was nothing around me for 20 feet. So, but I clearly saw this man's face behind me.
So is there any corroboration with this man working there, or Henry as a real person, or tied to the name of the man that you saw, anything like that you found out later?
Not that I can find, because I have, at the time, that kind of sparked a little something. Oh, I saw, and most of my, if I'm remembering correctly, most, if not all, my friends only said they would hear things or see something move, like a door open. They never say they saw something. And from my understanding, they just, somebody a while back, which is, they nicknamed him Henry for whatever reason. But this is probably back. It's definitely before the internet. So it's not like I could Google something like, hey,
Yeah.
accidental deaths or deaths in a movie theater or whatever. So as best I could back then, people didn't know. It had been going on for so long that if the person who knew about it wasn't probably around the area or working for them. Not to say that they had passed, because it wasn't that long, but yeah, no, and that was the only time I've ever seen that. And we've been to that theater multiple times afterwards. But yeah, no, it was a clear. There was somebody standing behind me. It was just as simple as that.
That's a very cool experience and sighting. Do you feel lucky to have seen that?
I do, because I'm very much probably ghosts, Bigfoot, and Dogman are probably my three biggies that I will watch anything. I'll watch anything that's out there on these three subjects. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I'd love to see something else again.
See, and that's the beauty of the whole one-off thing. You're kind of going, so I was blessed to have seen Henry, whereas most people only heard him, assuming that was still the same entity that was making the noises.
Yeah.
And then you're going, why didn't I see him again? Why did I go back to that theater and never experience that again? And you wonder if he only shows himself in that room as well, if it's a more residual type of a situation.
Yeah, true. Because that was, you had to go upstairs to get to that room, and so it could be, hey, that's where they heard the noises. But they have seen. I think they saw a bathroom door open. I'm trying to remember all this stuff, because, I mean, it was like pretty much all my friends that worked there said the same thing. Oh yeah, it's haunted. Now that theater has since been torn down, and some businesses are there. I chickened out. I was going to go into, because where it was, I believe it's a paint store, because you always hear, oh, whenever you remodel, it stirs up activity. And so I was kind of curious to go in there and say, hey, do you guys ever have anything weird happening here? You mean besides you coming in and asking that?
Mm-hmm.
No. But I never did. So.
Yeah, and that could go either way. They could have more activity. They might see him all the time versus they never hear him. It's just seeing him. Or it may have just stopped altogether. Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, it's been that way for a while now. So, but
right. So this next one is another one with the caveat of the question mark at the end again. So thank you for that. So it says touched by a ghost ?
Okay, so I worked for a friend of mine, and we installed home theater systems. And we're at a client's house, longtime client, so we were very, comfortable with them and everything. And we're downstairs. I guess it would be technically a basement, but we don't do basements out here in California. So it was just the lower part of the house. And I'm in this room, this theater room, and my buddy's in one corner. I'm walking down, and the owner had just come down to, I think she was switching laundry over or something. And I go, oh, that was weird. And she goes, what? I go, oh, nothing. She's all, no, what? I'm like, well, something just poked me in the chest. And she goes, oh, that's the ghost. And my buddy just goes, oh, don't get him started. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, oh, I'm pretty sure this house is haunted. And basically what it was I was just walking, and when somebody lightly touches your sternum or your chest,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what it felt like. And there was nothing hanging down. I'm just walking to go to the back of the room, and just this little on my chest. And it just like, in the minute she said, oh, this place is haunted, I got instant chills. So, and she was into the stuff too. So she was kind of saying, we couldn't find anything, but we hear some things, and they had never seen anything move or any apparitions, but they would hear things. Like they'd be upstairs and they would hear something downstairs, or they'd be downstairs and you hear something upstairs. And so, but yeah, that was kind of a weird little, because I've never been touched, and it was just, that's exactly what it feels like if you just, let me touch your chest.
Well, how often had that happened to anybody, did she say?
She said that hasn't happened to anybody.
Nobody at all. That's kind of weird. That in and of itself is so strange, right? That she right away goes, oh, that must be the ghost. But then in her head, she's probably like, oh my gosh, he's never, or he or it or she has never touched anybody.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Like I was saying, from my understanding, she was just saying that it was just audible. They were just hearing stuff. And
that's weird. That's why I was like, oh, surely something will be jogged, and there'll be this story of, oh, well, this one time, but there was no one time. Yeah. You were the one time.
I guess I was the lucky one, I guess. I don't know.
And then your friend, your coworker's like, don't get him started.
Yeah. Yeah, because he knew he was one of my best friends, so he knew all the stuff I was into.
Oh, well,
Which is funny.
That is pretty cool, though. Then it chose you to poke because you were the one into this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
sorry, what were you going to say, Jim?
No, I was going to say so the friend that I work for was also kind of involved in one of the other stories too. So
so him just being in proximity to you, he's got things going down. That's awesome.
Well, no, we can kind of jump ahead, or I don't know. It's the abandoned mansion thing.
Yeah, if you want, and then we could go back to the orb.
So yes, because the abandoned mansion, the one story I'm going to tell, happened before that, but it was the same place.
Oh.
Yes. So in Capitola, California, there's this place called the Rispin Mansion. I'm not sure if you Googled it at all, but it's this gentleman built it way back when, had some things happen, and then the church bought it, and it was this place for the sisters to be. And that we always heard rumors of, they used to drown babies in the basement and this and that. And of course, nothing's ever true. But it had been abandoned. So this was in the 80s when I was in high school. That used to be the thing to do. Go in there, sneak into we used to call it the monastery. That was the last thing it used to be. And in the 80s, I think at that point, it had been abandoned for about 30 years. I can't remember. I'll have to Google and see when it was abandoned. But so we would all go in and explore this place. That's kind of back before it got too bad. The weird thing was when you went upstairs into the main living room, there was a fireplace that had two bookcases on either side. Well, if you're looking at the fireplace, on the right-hand side, one of the bookcases would slide open. You can go into, I guess, their version of a panic room, and then close the bookcase. And then there was a steel plate that you would slide into place. And that was still there when we were exploring. So everybody would go up there and check that out. So I could never find anything about the owner, being into the crime or anything like that. Just for some reason, there was this little panic room. So as we're exploring and walking around, one of my friends, gets the bright idea to go into the basement. And I said, I will not be doing that. If anything's ever going to happen, it's going to be in the basement. So I opted to not go down there. So that which left me by myself in, I believe, what was the kitchen area. And now since they were downstairs, I can't say the noises I heard, which it sounded like somebody walking around. I can't say for sure it wasn't them, but they were below me on what I would have believed to have been concrete floor of the basement. And this sounded like somebody walking on a wooden floor. And so I opted to wait outside for them. I heard the walking across the floor, and I went, nope, I'm out. I'll be waiting outside. So I did. And they came out and goes, what are you waiting outside for? And at that point, I'm like, I'm not even going to get into this. So they weren't down there, but they weren't down there very long either. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what I have for that one.
So it looks like I did the Googles real quick for everybody. It was abandoned since 57 or 59. So quite a long time. But the inside photos of this, well, the outside too, it's wild. I mean, it's a big, beautiful place. Of course, there's parts of it that are burned and graffiti all over it. Part of the floors look like they have collapsed.
Yeah.
It looks like old Zach and the crew went there at one point too, from what I'm seeing.
Very recently they went there.
Oh,
which
recently?
was kind of cool. Yeah, I want to say within the past year or two.
Oh, I didn't. I don't really watch too many of those shows, so I wasn't even aware of that. That's extremely recent for them because they've already at this point gone to most every place that's high up on the list.
Now, back in the 80s when we were going, the floors weren't in that bad of shape. You could walk upstairs because, I'm like, oh, they're gonna go upstairs and see that. No, when they went in, you could see how bad it looked. The floors were gone and stuff like that. It was more dangerous to go into it. But when we went into it, you could walk downstairs, you could walk upstairs. The bookshelf was still there sliding. The steel plate was still able to slide. So that's why, like I said, they were probably there. God, I want to say I was here in Missouri, so probably 23, 24, they were there.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go look this place up. I mean, if somebody restored that, I mean, it cost an absolute fortune, but what a big, beautiful place.
There was always, we need to remodel it, rebuild it, get it back. Because it is a piece of history for, Capitola. And it's literally, 3 minutes to the beach from there. So basically, probably the pictures you're seeing are from what I would call the front, and then on the back side of it, it goes slightly downhill, and there's a creek there or a very, very small river that goes out to the beach. So, the picture with the orb that I sent you, that's that building. So it's just from if you're looking at it, the left-hand side.
Wow, that place is stunning. Sorry, I'm distracted by all the photos too because it's a big place. Yeah, it's sitting on a hill. So, all right, so let's go to the orb situation now. Is this? Yeah. So sorry, you go ahead. I'm not going to set this up.
So this is probably 2016. I can't remember when the movie came out, but it was when one of the Halloween movies came out. So it was in October. It was a premiere of the movie, and I had my son for the weekend. So my son and I, and then two of my sisters, we all went to watch the movie. And so when the movie was over, I'm like, hey, it's pitch black out. Let's go down to the monastery and look around. And my son's into the stuff just as much as I am. So, and he probably would have been 16, maybe? No, 14, because he's going to be 22 this year. So he was in his early teens. He's like, hell yeah, let's go. So we go out there and we're just walking around, and you can't get too far because they have it gated off and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this looks pretty creepy. It's around Halloween. So I take just my normal iPhone and I snap a picture. And as I snap, out of the corner of my eye on my left side, this orange orb, which was probably the size of a cantaloupe, goes down. And now at this point, I'm watching it. So I see it go down the side of the house, and then it turned right and went behind the house. And I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? He's all, what? I didn't see it. I go, oh, come here, look. I saw this. I took a picture, and then after I took the picture, I saw the orb. It's like, oh man, I didn't see that. Didn't think anything of it. It was, oh man. So we waited around a little bit longer. Didn't see anything else. So we said, all right, well, let's get out of here. It's getting late. Because it was probably, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock by the time we got out of the movie and then came over here, because it wasn't far away. And so I get home and I'm like, I'm just going to put some, maybe post some pictures saying, oh, we went and saw Halloween and now we went over here. And that's when I noticed I actually caught the orb in the picture. And I showed my son, I'm like, look, check it out. I actually caught it. And it's like, oh man. But yeah, I saw it go down the hill, and then it just, from what I remember, it wasn't moving very fast, but it wasn't going slow either. It just went down the hill and then to the right behind the house.
Now, is there any possibility, I have the one pulled up where it actually looks like there's two separate lights of some sort. Is there any possibility those are headlights or taillights from a road?
No.
Wow.
So from where I was standing, looking at the house, there is a road behind me that goes to my left. Because like I was saying, there's a small river there. Like I said, it's like, I use the word river loosely. A big creek or small river. So, and that goes parallel to the road. So you cannot drive behind this house. Now, to be fair, across the creek and on the other side of the house, there is a parking lot. But that's what's weird, because I saw that too in the picture. It looks like there's two, but no, what I saw with my own eyes was a bright, solid orange. It looked to be glowing. It wasn't pulsing or anything like that. It was just a solid glowing ball of light about the size of a cantaloupe or melon. And it just went down, turned behind the house. Because all that going down the side of the hill, it's all bushes and trees. So you couldn't drive down there if you wanted to. And like I said, I'm standing there looking. My son's there. So we would have seen anybody else. Yeah. And if it was coming from the parking lot on the other side of the creek, we would have seen it come up the hill, not go down and turn around. So, but what we saw was or not we, because my son didn't see it. What I saw was just a single ball of light.
Well, and also the deer is right there in the picture as well.
Oh no, I'm sorry, that's something different.
Oh,
that's a different one. So
you're talking about the rod looking light.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the totally wrong set of pictures.
Yeah. So that's looking at the house.
Yes.
And you see the house in the corner, and then it looks like a rod.
I gotcha. Wow, that is weird. That is really weird. But so Yeah, now, okay, so I see the fencing in the foreground. So does
Hmm.
that then mean that when you guys were here at this time that you cannot just willy-nilly walk around this property at that time?
Correct. That's as if you were going to be respectful of the law,
Yeah,
air quotes.
right.
That's as far as you could go because it went completely around.
Yeah, see that
So
that now makes sense because now that I'm looking at this picture, you're probably like, "Why are you asking about cars?" Because this would be a very strange light to
I'm like,
have it
no, there's
be
a creek
cars.
back there. You
Yeah,
can't.
you're like, "What is this? The DeLorean from?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense now because now this would be looking essentially downhill. It would just not work out
Yeah.
that way for a car.
So you can kind of see the little decorative archway there with the gate.
Mm-hmm.
It went right to the left of that and over the wall. Just a nice slow, straight, not slow, but a nice line down. And then I saw it curve to the right.
Mm. Yeah, that's a weird one.
So yeah.
And you've heard me ask this since you've been on board for so long, but I like to ask this while I'm recording because people will inevitably ask, are these photos just for me to consume while we're talking, or are some or all of these okay to post with your episode?
Oh no, you can totally share them with whoever. Yeah, you can post them.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. You know, you knew that was
Hmm.
coming. That's
Oh
something
yeah,
I like
yeah.
to mention
Well, that's why I
during the
sent
recording.
pictures. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. Some of the pictures are just for my own reference point, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But that's why I always like to make sure because if photos are mentioned, people are going to go, well, where the hell are they? Because I want to see. So that way it's
And I
covered
am one of
during
those
the
people.
recording. Yeah. Yeah.
You said pictures. Let's see these pictures. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, we don't want to get them out in the open. I'm like, come on.
Like, you're right there. We got the photos. It's
Yeah.
at least something, but I understand. I understand why sometimes people just don't want to go there. Well, what a fascinating property that is. It's a shame that people, as you say, do jump the fence and do trespass and break the law, and they go in and they just spray paint and they do dumb shit that
Yeah.
is just so silly and unfortunate.
Yeah. So now, with that being said, my son may or may not have, with a friend, jumped the fence.
Yeah, but he probably didn't go in and start a fire or
No,
attack
he didn't.
something,
So one weekend, and this was probably a few years after this. So my son lived 3 hours south of me with his mom. And so I would get him every other weekend. So one weekend he came up and he brought his friend with him because he wanted to show him the place. I said, yeah, go ahead. I don't care if you jump the fence. I'm too old. I'm waiting here. So they're exploring and they come kind of booking it back a little bit, not running, but kind of moving a little bit. And I believe my son, they heard a knock on the door because they were checking it out, trying to see if they could get in there. And they heard two quick little tap on the door. And they just said, oh, no, time to go. So, and this door would have been I'm trying to remember because they went around and it was on the backside. So, yeah.
So this is just from the Google Monster again, and it says the spirits believed to haunt Rispen Mansion include Henry Rispen himself, the mansion's original owner after his financial downfall, a woman in white who was reportedly murdered in the mansion when it was an illicit speakeasy during Prohibition, and the spirits of the homeless who met tragic ends there. Some also believe the mansion is haunted by the residual energy of dark rituals from its time as a monastery or by the spirits of Native Americans who were forced into the Santa Cruz mission system. So I would imagine that even without previous owners or the speakeasy time, if you have people coming into any building or structure, or hell, even out into the woods. I mean, that can seep into the land, I suppose, if you want to go that route.
Yeah.
If you're doing dark rituals, that alone, I think, is a recipe for bad things or creepy things or scary things to be hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, because there's always rumors, and Santa Cruz has its own legends and stuff. Um, like, have you ever heard of the Brookdale Lodge?
Oh, yes. Is that the one with the water that runs through it and the little girl?
Yes,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
is probably about, well, that's in Santa Cruz. So that's probably about 30 minutes from the mansion.
Mm.
So there is a bunch of, famous stuff kind of around there
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And also too, I believe in the early 70s, I think before we moved there, it was like the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, a lot of dark
Uh,
stuff happened in California specifically. That,
yeah, well, and specifically in this area,
yeah.
James Kemper
Oh,
is from Santa Cruz.
yeah. James Kemper
Yeah.
is like the 7'5" guy, right? The
Yeah, he's
serial
the big
killer.
guy.
Yeah. Mm.
So he would roam the Santa Cruz Mountains, and so
Nobody had a
a
chance.
lot of weird
against that
stuff
guy.
there. No,
That's a giant attacking you. You have pretty much no shot.
Yeah, especially since he was pretty much going after college women.
Yeah, real fair, right? Real fair.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
wow, that's a fascinating one. Well, I'm sorry for getting the pictures mixed up. That would have
No,
helped
that's-
my line of questioning to pay attention to the. I just went right for the. I was like, oh, there's the light in the orb in the trees there. Let me pull that up. Sorry about that. All right, so the next one is fairy sighting ?
Okay, so this is one where I was living in San Antonio and coming home from work, and the way I went kind of took the freeway for the most part, but then I went. It's not a back road, but it was a road that wasn't the freeway, and there was I could see traffic was starting to slow down. This was just a 2-lane road, but it was a main road, and something flew out in front of my car and went off to the side. It was high enough for me to see it. And I went, what is that? And I looked over and it went to the side of the road, kind of hovered there for a minute, came back to pretty much right in front of my car, and then flew. I hate to say flew, but it went straight up. Now, this thing looked to be about, I don't know, 10 inches tall, maybe. So it's not like it wasn't a bird, and it wasn't a hummingbird, because that's kind of almost how it flew. Like a hummingbird, but it wasn't a hummingbird, because the weird part, and this is where it's going to get weird, it looked like whatever it was wearing pants.
Whoa.
And since it moved so quickly, it's like that's what kind of caught my attention. And then as soon as I went, what is that? And then it went up and away. And so at this point, the reason why I brought there was traffic is at this point I wasn't moving. I was slowing down, and that's when I was slowing down, it kind of flew across the other side of the road, got to the edge of the road, came back and literally stopped probably 5 feet in front of my car. And then as soon as I thought, are those pants? And then it went straight up. But I just meant it went up out of my sight because I was sitting in my car. But the way it moved, I guess that's the way I have how fairies move, is like a hummingbird, that little quick, moving back and forth. And so from what I can remember, it's not like they were feathers, so they weren't feathers hanging down. They look like pants. That's the best way I can explain it.
What kind of pants are we talking about?
Okay, I think I'm crazy when I say it. 1940s trousers.
Really?
That's what literally came to my mind when I saw it. That's kind of what it looked like. Not, like that baggy, pressed look. And that's kind of what it looked like to me. That's why I should have put multiple question marks, because I question myself on it all the time. But that's what I saw. And I'll be quite fair. That's what I thought I saw. Something did fly in front of my car, because it caught my attention, and I was, like I said, slowing down because of traffic. So I was able to get a good look at it, because I had now stopped. I had stopped by the time it got to the side of the road, and then so that when it was in front of me, I was stopped. So you hear stories of something flying in front of your car to stop you, like a guardian angel type thing. But this wasn't anything, because traffic was already slowing down. Everybody's going very slow anyway. So it wouldn't have been anything to save me from, I guess I should say.
So I'm sure that you've seen photos of the Luna moth, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times that's what people jump to, which rightfully so. In some cases, it certainly probably could be one of these Luna moths, but they have these two parts off of, I believe it's part of their wings that come down, and people go, well, that's what looks like legs to some people hanging down whilst the wings are still flying, which to me, I'm thinking, if it's attached to the wings, wouldn't that make these quote unquote legs look like they were running or flapping very strangely? To me, it would seem pretty obvious that would be a moth. But did you get any sense of the upper, body, for lack of a better term, to where?
No, that's why. No, that's why I was saying, as soon as I looked at it, it was the idea of something having pants on.
Yeah, of the pants.
Was
and
in
then
my,
it was
so,
gone.
So that's what I concentrated on, and then it just went and flipped away.
Yeah.
So, because it as soon as it came back into view to where it was right in front of me, I guess the legs or whatever were in direct eyesight, line of sight. I didn't have to look down or up. It was right there. So, but yeah, it was weird.
I would love to see something with pants or like a little set of Nikes or Chucks or something just flying. I mean, that's awesome. I love that one.
Yeah.
But I do, again, I appreciate the question mark, because you're like, hey, I'm sharing this. I'm sharing as much information as I have with it. Make your own decision. I don't know what I saw, but it was at least something to mention, because it is strange.
Yeah, because I think at that point I had been to some sort of cryptic con that was about an hour from my house. I met Ken Gerhard, talked to him a little bit, and then there was a gal that, and I've always wondered if this was the two guests you had on. Who are the two gals that do fairy stuff?
You mean Tina and Laura?
Yeah.
Of Free Will Healing, yeah.
Okay, I should probably look them up, because I thought they may have been them, because the person who did that Bigfoot mapping project, he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Lyle Woodburn was there. So there were some big name people there. So I remember looking at some of their stuff. So I kind of had something envisioned in my head, I guess, when I saw this thing, and thought, I think I remember when it went across and stopped, because it seemed to hover there for a second. And then I do remember thinking on the way back, is that a fairy? And then, like I said, I know, wait, it's what, pants? And then it was gone. So it was pretty quick, but I do remember at one point thinking, is that a fairy?
Yeah, I guess I could see once your brain goes, are those pants? Your eyes are probably pretty trained on that particular point of interest for maybe a tick longer than if, for whatever reason, It didn't seem to have pants on. You might have taken in more information with your
No,
eyeballs,
yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. I've
that is
been
wild.
looking at. So yeah.
All right, so the next one, obviously you already know one of my questions, but let's not jump ahead because I obviously did. So now you have one of the questions that I have about one of the pictures in this next story.
Yes.
But okay, so set this up. Next one is something in the trees.
Okay. So at this point, at this point, I'm not in Missouri yet, but my son is, and so he's out in an area called Bates City, Missouri, which is probably it's to the east of where I am. So he's probably 45 minutes to an hour from Kansas City. Anyway, I bought him a trail cam for his birthday because they live in this very, very tiny neighborhood that's the smallest lot's 4 acres and the largest lot is 10 acres. And there's just about this group of homes around this small man-made lake. And so behind his house is where the trail camera is. Now his mom and stepdad have 4 acres. So there's a little bit of property behind them, but there also is other homes that you can see. There's one home across one area, but where this is pointing, there is a field much further in the distance. And to be fair, there is a road that comes up. Probably, oh God, it is, I'm trying to think from where that is, 100 yards from where I think the point we're talking about is, behind where that spot is. Because this spot that we're talking about is right on the border of my son's property line. And where this is there's a common walking path. Now it's not paved, it's just this area that people can walk on so that you're not really walking on somebody's property. And so people do walk back there. But in the trail cam, as you can see with the pictures, so let me see which ones I sent to you so I don't get this wrong. So there's one, I think I sent the one with, it's just a deer in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first one. The next one is the deer still in the picture, but then you see that little orb off to the left.
Yeah.
So these are being clicked off in succession. Then the next one isn't. It's just what appears to be car headlights. Well, if you zoom in on it, it's too close for headlights because of where it's standing. And we all kind of know where I'm going with this. And then when you go to the next one, you can see it's gone. And then for perspective, I took a picture. Now, I did not take the picture. This is the same trail cam, same location the next day. So if you can see where that walking fence is, that's where people would walk.
Okay.
But you can also see how high that is. Now, I wish we had a problem with the trail cam. So once I got up here, this is give me a date. Okay, so I came up in 24. So about a year and a half later, I moved up here. And I'm like, let's go, show me where this thing's at, bro. And so we go out there and I go, you stand out where you think it is. And this is where a mistake on my part. We didn't leave. He had taken the camera down because there was an issue with it. So I couldn't get a picture of him, who was 6'4", standing out there. But he put his hand up and he put his hand straight up. And we both agree that's about where the eyes were. So he's 6'4", holding his hand straight up. and that's where about the eyes would have been. So it would have been right off the 8-foot mark.
Yeah, I am trying to zoom in on these things because now I realize that the daytime picture is actually this same incident. That is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, did he ever have any strange sounds or anything strange on the property?
He has heard some things there, and he is a nature guy. He loves hiking. He loves animals, and he's into this stuff just as much as I am. So whenever we come across something, oh, you got to check this out or whatever. And he has heard some things that his analytical brain kind of, even though he is a believer, he likes to figure things out. He couldn't say if it, well, no, that might have been a bobcat because they do have bobcats. I think they even had a mountain lion once on the property, in their property. So he couldn't say for sure, but he has heard things.
And he's thinking that it would have been on top of the fence?
No, he's thinking it was behind the fence. Walking that path when whatever it was saw the deer and had stopped to look at the deer. And the deer just happened to move. And that's when it got, what I was thinking was it's watching the deer. The deer's covering the camera that's right in front of it. It steps away from the camera, and whatever it is gets a picture taken and says, oh, I got to go. And then boogied.
How high is that fence?
Fence is probably about 4 feet.
4 feet, okay.
Yeah, about 4 feet.
It's definitely strange. And what's cool is with you being willing to share the pics, people can comment and make up their own minds. But I love that people have the trail cams up, and occasionally something strange can kind of be shown on these trail cams. And as you say, maybe whatever it was did realize they can hear it or sense that it's gone off and boogied on out of there because, as we well know, there's how many trail cams up in the woods, and we should be getting pictures of Bigfoot probably daily, but we never do.
Yeah. The only thing that kind of throws me off is there is that orange light. That's just in one picture. If it's a car driving by, the way these pictures click, you would see it here and then there and then there. So now I'm not saying this. People have said, "Oh, I saw a big orb and then I saw Bigfoot." I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there's two weird things happening here. They just happen to be in like almost the same exact location.
Well, and I will say that when it's just the single light, it's really bright.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you can see the star-shaped pattern coming off around it because it's so bright.
I know. And and when you go to the daytime picture, you can see there's nothing there that can make that bright light.
Yeah, I wonder if I plug this into even just a Canva or something and did like the reverse negative editing stuff to see if anything pops. I might do that just to see for fun.
Yeah, see, I just have it's on my phone. That's and that's the only way I don't have a computer to really mess with it. And you can't do too much on your iPhone, but the one where it's just what I think are the two eyes. It gets digitized.
Yeah.
So it's looking all blocky, but because it almost looks like it's, I don't want to say outlining anything, but it almost looks like it's illuminating something around it.
Yeah, I do see when you zoom in, I do see the the blocks, as you say, which is there's nothing that you can do about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I'll play with these a little bit and see if something pops out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Does he still have that property?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They still live there, and he put a different trail. Yeah, he put a different trail cam out because this one was one of those ones. It had cellular attached to it, so it would send you notifications. So you could, and they'd send you the pictures directly to your phone. So, like the other one, sometimes he'll forget to go check it, and the one that's out there now will, if you don't check it soon enough, it just goes over the card. So, but he's checked it, and the few times he has checked it, we haven't really seen anything weird out there.
Yeah, if I ever lived in a place like that, I would 100% be getting the best trail cams that I could afford with real time alerts and all this other stuff. Of course, it's kind of one of those things where you go, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to see something, but then if you're laying in bed and you see something in real time, you're like, oh, well, I live here now. Great. And there's that right out there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see it, but I don't know if I'm going to get up and go look.
Yeah, totally different to actually physically have that happen at your house. And also, that's with anything and everything.
Yeah.
If you have creepy UFO stuff and little gray dudes at the foot of your bed, or Bigfoot peeking in your window, or ghosts in the closet or in the basement, or shadow people, like they always like to. It's always a closet or a basement or a hallway, right? It's not always strike that, but a lot of times that's not an ideal situation.
No, and when you, I think it might be a Bigfoot. I'll say it. When you go to the, what is it, the Bigfoot mapping project, there are sightings near us.
Have you thought about going?
I should say near him.
Near him, yeah. I mean, have you thought about going out there and doing some wood knocks or whoops or whatnot, that we know what we're saying to them? So,
yeah,
you know,
no, we just because it is a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, if you're knocking on a tree, nobody's going to hear that because, like I said, it's 3 to 4. It's 4 acres is the smallest lot,
right?
Which is what they have, and then the biggest lot is 10 acres. So there are a bunch, but a lot of separation from people. But no, we never run it because he hasn't seen anything or heard anything in a while.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then at that point, I mean, even though you're acres and acres apart, it's still your control group is known human beings. So if you're whooping or knocking, chances are if you get something back, you got to go, well, I definitely can't say that's Bigfoot because we're surrounded by other people.
Yeah.
At least in other areas, you can kind of go, oh, God, I'm 6 miles deep in the bush, and that was weird. And then you go, okay, yes, that actually was weird because, I hiked 6 miles back, and it's not even a trail or whatever the situation was. But, yeah, anytime you're in a neighborhood, and plus, he lives there. That's his neighbors. And if somehow they could pinpoint that's coming from his house, they'd go, what's with so-and-so? And with what's he whooping out like, he's doing finding Bigfoot stuff out there. What's doing?
Yeah.
You don't want all the neighbors to think you're totally weird.
I know.
Somewhat weird.
I know.
Okay. But, yeah, I get that. All right. So next up, you mentioned a couple of more points here, and that you mentioned exploding head syndrome, that you had an experience with that.
Yeah, so this was probably about 4 years ago. It was right about probably like 6 o'clock in the morning because I was getting up at 7 in the morning, and I remember I had woken up, I think, and I was kind of laying on my right side, And I said, oh, okay, I got another hour before I have to get up. And I fell back to sleep. So I don't know how much longer it was. But then all of a sudden I hear this, "Whoa," and it was like right in front of my face. And now, like I said, I'm in my bed on my right side, and I open my eyes up real quick, and there's nothing around me. There's nothing there. I mean, I heard it open my eyes, and I have roommates, but there's nobody in my room with me. And so when I went, oh, that's weird, and I went back to bed, went to work, and when I came home from work that night, two roommates that have rooms near me, I said, hey, did you hear anything strange this morning? And I told them what happened. And they went, no, I didn't hear anything. So whatever it was just localized, and it was about that loud too, if not maybe a little bit louder, up to where it startled me and woke me up.
Yeah, it's not a nice way to be woken up.
No, it really isn't.
And I think that is the proper. I kind of spit out that syndrome part. I think that is correct. Actually, I think it is called exploding head syndrome, and it's not like you have some kind of a disease or something, or an affliction. It's just one of those really strange things that our brains do when it's just at whatever level of sleep or restfulness that we're at. It's messed up, is what it is, and thank goodness it doesn't happen very often. I've had something, not like a person hollering, thank God, that would really suck. Because then you're probably in fight or flight mode, all of a sudden thinking someone is literally right next to your ear while you're laying in bed. So that's horrible.
Yeah, see, I think I can't say for sure that it was a human voice. I think it's just me trying to put a label on it, first of all,
right,
and me too trying to reproduce it. I'm a person trying to reproduce. So, but I mean, it did sound like it was, I don't want to say human made, but it did sound like it was a natural somebody doing something.
Yeah, not pleasant.
Yeah, no, not pleasant at all.
Not pleasant. And I guess it's good though that you talk to the roommates and they're like, no, we didn't hear anything, because then you go, okay, well, good. That probably was just literally in my own head. And where we're living is not haunted by a very auditory leaning ghost of some sort.
No, that would not be good.
All right. So this last point, I suppose a phantom smell, is that what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah. So this is kind of, like I was saying, my father had passed in 2019, and it's 2023, I think, and I'm living in Texas. And because my daughter and son-in-law moved to Texas, and then they had a baby, my first grandchild, so I moved out there with them. And my son was already up in Missouri with his mom and stepdad. He had come down for Christmas. So he and I are at the store. I think my daughter was with us for some reason, because I remember her being there. And we're going down the aisle to get the stuff we need. We're the only ones in the aisle. We're in the middle of the aisle. And what we're buying is stuff for my father's sauce. My grandmother, his mom, would make sauce and meatballs, and that was our absolute favorite. So when my grandma passed, my dad made it. And so we all the kids were taught how to make the sauce, and I luckily make it pretty well. And I taught my son. And so we're out getting stuff for that. all of a sudden, I'm like, I told my son, I go, here, you guys come over here and smell this. They came over, smelt it, and they instantly both said, Papa. My dad wore Calvin Klein Obsession cologne from the day it came out till he passed. So that's the only cologne he ever wore. It smelled so strong where we were that I told my kid, come, I didn't say what I smelled. I said, come over here and smell this. What do you smell? And they both smelled and they went, Papa. So with the setup of this is, like I'm saying, we're in the middle of this grocery store aisleway. Yes, there's multiple people, but we were the only ones in the aisle and nobody had walked past us. So like you get that all the time. Somebody walks past you, they're already gone, and then you smell them. That hadn't happened. It was just, we were in there trying to find something. So we were in there for a minute trying to find this certain type of sauce. And that's when and then all of a sudden I smell it. And so, yeah, I think my father stopped by to say he was happy with us making the sauce.
Yeah, that is really cool. And even as you say, let's just say somehow somebody from another aisle, their cologne wafted over. The fact that you guys were collecting the ingredients for his sauce and that happened, even that alone is just cool. But
yeah,
also, like you said, nobody had walked by. You normally don't smell someone's cologne unless it is a wild amount of cologne on another aisle. So I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. Yeah, and it's Calvin Klein Obsession. I mean, who even wears that anymore?
Right. Yeah, that was out a long time ago.
Yeah, he had to. It was kind of like almost a running joke. Well, it actually was a running joke. All right, who's going to be able to find Calvin Klein Obsession for Dad for Christmas?
Or the biggest bottle of it.
Yeah, I mean, and it was. It would be like, okay, it's my turn to try to find this, and that would be a Christmas gift. Whatever he was kind of getting out of it, one of us would have to try and find it somewhere.
That is really cool. I love that.
Yeah.
That stuff is touching, and I do feel like they do know how to say I'm okay, or thank you guys, thank you for making the sauce, giving the high five from up there. I love it. I love experiences.
Yeah, that was a
like
good
that.
one. I really like that one because like I said, both kids were like, Papa.
That is cool.
So,
well, Jim, I appreciate you being willing to come on. And also, you've been a long-time Patreon member, so I cannot thank you enough for being willing to spend any money to support me and the show and keep that going. And you've been around for a very long time as a listener and a supporter. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I look forward to this. I get email notifications. I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this one now. And so, yeah, no, I enjoy them. You do a very good job.
Thank you, Jim. And hey, if you hear anything more at your son's house or there's more things collected, come back on for part 2. You know that I love part 2s and part 3s and all of these of everybody coming back. So you are welcome back anytime if you get more strange experiences. But other than that, I'm going to see you over on Patreon and the Discord and the live chats and things. So.
All righty. Thank you very much, Shannon.